Hi, welcome to SBR Sports Picks. I'm Peter Loshak. It's week 3 in the NFL. Today is Friday, September 23rd. We are talking right now with Brent, the headlines manager at DSI Sportsbook, doing our regular weekly Into the Weekend with BetDSI show, where we discuss the notable betting action that Brent has seen up through Friday afternoon every week in college football and the NFL. Brent, thanks so much for doing this show with us once again. NFL week 3, the Sharps went 4-2, according to you last week, of what you told us in last week's show, which brings them to 6-3 overall on the year. So the Sharps appear to have a pretty nice, they're off to a good start in the NFL. First thing I want to ask you about, though, is the action that you saw on the Thursday night Texans-Pats game, because of course, you know, there was a lot of line movement in that game, right? I saw the line was up to Houston -2.5 midweek, and it closed around Pick'em. So a lot of action came in on the Pats in some form. I'm assuming that was probably sharp action, right?
Yeah, there's actually good two-way action there, both from the publics and the Sharps. So that was a good situation for us. Yeah, we've been had England favored by 1 at some point and pretty much ended -1 as well. I did get sharp action when we went there at -1 on Houston, so they took the +1 there. Early in the week, as you mentioned, they did bet New England, and so it was a real good game for us in that we didn't we were very, very balanced in terms of the side action. We needed the under, and we got that, so that was a good situation for us as well. It was all around good action. We didn't really have to when we were moving basically between 1.5 and 1, so you're not really exposed too much. And with the action that we wrote was as good as it was, so it ended up being a real good game for us. But I mean, how about the New England Patriots? I mean, it's just like, I think this is why people love them and why people hate them. I mean, they go this. I mean, you talk about they're out there with a quarterback who most people don't even know his name or what school he went to, and they shut out Houston at home 27-0. It's just like, come on. I mean, they haven't had Brady, and they're 3-0. Who knows? They might end up being 4-0 without Brady, and Houston was undefeated at the time. It's just kind of, you got to have a whole lot of respect for New England, whether you like them or not.
Right, but that could be dangerous for you, right? Because when the public catches on to that, they'll pound away at the Pats, and that can be dangerous for the books, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we pretty much assume people are going to bet the Pats no matter what.
Right.
And that's kind of been that's been the case for I don't know how many years running now. So, it's good for us in that we're never afraid, like, oh my, I might not get any money back on the Patriots.
Right,
now
right.
If you say, if we're talking about another team like the Buccaneers or something, you say, I might not get money back. Well, that's a different situation. New England, you're always going to get money back if you need it.
Right. Unexpected action is what you're most concerned about. And with the Pats, you can pretty much well predict what you're going to get. All right. Well, let's talk about 3 games that I want to ask you about from NFL Week 3 specifically. The first one is the Redskins and the Giants. Now, the Sharps and myself had the Redskins supposedly each of the first 2 weeks, and we all lost with them. Now they're getting decent points at the Giants. I'm wondering, is there any notable sharp action on this game? Are the Sharps taking the Redskins a 3rd week in a row?
Yeah, but you said the Sharps and yourself.
And myself, exactly. That should have been a big warning to everyone.
I assume those to be one and the same.
Sometimes
Sharps,
yes,
right?
sometimes no. A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, Brent.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like when we do these shows, it would be more trouble and more work for me to make this stuff up.
Right.
But as you could tell by line movement, I got sharp action on Washington again.
Wow. All right. Tell us.
Yeah, it's just, I can't help it,
Sure.
But yeah, I've got public money on the Giants, which maybe not a surprise. I mean, but Washington's been a team that the Sharps have liked from the get-go, and I actually have 2 different guys who are like, if I had a top 10 list of Sharps and a top 5 list of Sharps, both these guys are in the top 5 of the Sharps.
Wow.
They took Washington +5
wow.
and +4.5. So I got 2 different guys taking 2 hits on the Redskins, again, +5 and +4.5. We're down to 3.5 right now. My wager count in terms of straight bets is slightly favors the Giants, nothing crazy. My money, though, is almost like 3-1 in favor of Washington. So I had not just 1, but 2 guys hammered big on the Redskins. And my wager count, when I look at the parlays and teasers and stuff like that, is more than 2-1 in favor of the Giants. So, you talk about the anatomy of a sharp and public split. This is definitely it. Now, I mean, me personally, not that my opinion matters anything, but I mean the Giants defense sure looks like they look like a different unit. They look real strong, and they're at home laying 3.5. That just seems like not a bad price. They're talking about dissension in the locker room with Cousins in Washington, all that kind of stuff. But the Sharps apparently didn't really care about that. They took the 5 and the 4.5.
All right. Well, I didn't immediately like the Redskins this week, so that's probably a good sign for the Sharps. This might be the week that you want to tail them and jump on the Redskins. I also noticed there was a big move to the under on this one. Did you get sharp action on the under? I think it opened at 48, and it's been creeping down to even 45.5 at some places.
Yeah, we're sitting at 45.5 right now in store. We got what I'm going to call respectable money. I mean, again, guys who kind of like just not sharp enough to be, on the show, basically, consider it that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, they did come in under the 47, so we haven't got money back yet on the over. But this is a game where you're probably going to get public money on the over. I mean, that usually happens with the Giants. You take a look at last week's game with the Giants and New Orleans.
Right.
I mean, that total we were like 54, something that we were, and it was strong, sharp action on the under, and public just kept on betting the over. So it's a situation where the sharps kind of identified maybe the Giants do have a decent defense, and it's a situation now where I'm looking at things, with the pseudo-sharp action that I have on the under, that I'm pretty confident that if I need over money from the public, it's going to come.
Right.
And when I look at parlays and teasers and stuff like that, it's almost 3-1 my count to the over. So my money's favors the under right now, but my bet count is way on the over. So I'll probably get some of that back. Again, the initial hit came at 47. We're down to 45.5. Now I know other books maybe open up a little earlier at 47.5 or 48, but 45 or 46 is where everyone seems to be right now.
All right, Brent, and then the official game of the week, in my opinion, that had sharp public split written all over it on the opening line is Arizona at the Bills, right? The Bills appear to be in somewhat disarray. They already fired their offensive coordinator. They lost their first two games. The Cardinals coming off a huge dominant win, and the Cards as a small road favorite of more than a field goal. Guessing that there might be a sharp public split here with the public obviously on the Cards and sharp action coming in on the Bills. Is that the case?
Yeah, that's really interesting with the offensive coordinator getting fired from the Bills in a week where they put up 31 points against the Jets, and the defense gives up 37 and just looked absolutely atrocious. So who are we going to fire? It's fire the offensive coordinator. That was just a weird situation. I kind of laughed. I mean, obviously someone had to go, and I guess that was the sacrificial lamb, so to speak. Yeah, sharp public split. You nailed that one for sure, Peter. That line is down to Arizona minus 3.5, maybe 3.5 with juice right now. Yesterday it was actually 4, so the line is creeping down still. And the sharp action that I did take on the game, 2 different sharps again, which is always nice to have. Buff plus 5, they both took it. Now, why were we still at 5 when one sharp already chimed in? Well, wager count, looking at parlays and teasers and stuff like that, it's about 8-1 in favor of Arizona. No surprise at all. Even on the straight bets, I'm looking at 3-1 in favor in terms of my wager count in favor of Arizona. So obviously one-sided. The public is just pounding Arizona. Money-wise is almost even. I do have slightly more money on Buffalo. Again, that was 2 sharp guys who hit Buffalo, so that's why it still slightly favors Buffalo despite the count being where it is. But yeah, this is a situation where I'm sure if we, just work the line properly, we're going to need Buffalo and we're going to need the sharps to win. And long term, we're obviously comfortable with that.
Right. Okay. And then the last thing I want to ask you about is the Monday night clash of the Falcons and the Saints. After beating Oakland, the Falcons are looking pretty good offensively. Obviously, there's a very high total here, and just like with the Giants game that you mentioned earlier in this call, I'm assuming that there's going to be a big public play on the over here despite the high total. Is that what you anticipate? Is that what you've seen so far?
Yeah, I mean, wager count on the over is about 6-1 already,
wow.
So it's definitely going that way. Yeah, and I think part of the thing with the Saints. With the overs, you just figure that people still like Breeze. They still have a lot of confidence what he can do and stuff like that. And the defensive factor last week may have been the Giants, not so much the Saints. So, I'm almost, like I said, about 6-1 in favor of the over. Line really hasn't moved much on the side, sitting at the Saints -3, dog 15 right now. Again, Saints at home to Atlanta. And, if you want to look at kind of the division and stuff like that, it's like, wow, this is suddenly, a big game. I mean, Carolina hasn't run away with it yet because they're 1-1. Atlanta's 1-1. New Orleans, this is kind of like a must-win game for them at 0-2.
All right, but as of right now, no notable sharp action on the side either way?
Yeah, no, nothing either way. I mean, looking at my wager count, it's almost 3-1 in favor of New Orleans, which is kind of no surprise. I mean, they are at home and, stuff like that, and the public always, has no problem backing New Orleans. They're not, New Orleans, Green Bay, New England, those are teams who just traditionally, get money. It's pretty easy to get money back on them, and that's the situation so far. Sharps haven't chimed in, so we really haven't had to move the number at all. Yesterday we were 3. We're, I think, with 3 dog 15 right now, or 3 flat, bouncing back and forth. So, not a whole lot of line movement just because nothing significant in terms of the sharps coming in and public public's kind of just batting it back and forth.
All right, Brent, what else can you tell us about notable action from the rest of NFL Week 3?
We'll talk about Denver at Cincinnati. That's at least on paper, that's a great-looking game.
Yeah.
Wager count slightly favors Denver, and I actually have sharp money on Denver as well. They took Denver +3, plus 110, so that's definitely a sharp play there. Oakland Raiders, we talked about them. They're at Tennessee this week. Sharps being what they are, grab the best of the number, of course. Oakland +1.5 is where the Sharps came in on that, and Oakland's actually a small favorite of -1, -105 right now. So big live movement there, just kind of flipping from a +1.5 to a -1. That's like 2.5 point move. Sharp money on Oakland there. Also the under. It's funny, Tennessee. The totals for Tennessee so far this season have been like 48s and stuff like that, kind of regularly. It just I don't know. Tennessee looks to me like the kind of team who wants to run the ball and control the clock, and they've got a decent defense. So they've Sharps been going under in those games and winning so far, and they're under this one as well, under 48. We're sitting at 47 right now. I've got almost twice as many bets on the over, which is no surprise in terms of Oakland people betting the over with them. That's kind of been the pattern for a couple of years now. So sharp money on the under 48 in the Oakland-Tennessee game, and the side with Oakland +1.5, both sharp. Buffalo, we talked about it, +5 and +4 being sharp. And, here's another one. Sometimes you just got to expect good things from bad teams, and that's going to be the situation this week with Cleveland at Miami. Line there is Miami 10, dog 15 right now. Sharps came in on Cleveland +10.5, -115. I actually have two different sharps on that game, so they're both the same way, and they're both on Cleveland. So kind of surprised, maybe Cleveland, the quarterbacks, they can't be any worse. But, the injuries they've had and the misfortune, it's tough to get behind a team like that. But I don't know how good Miami is. I guess we're going to find out if they can get the job done this weekend. Drop down to Tampa Bay at home to the L.A. Rams. Still got to get used to saying that. Tampa Bay up to 5.5 point favorite right now, or 5, depending where you're looking at, 5 or 5.5. Sharps came in on Tampa Bay at home -3.5 there. They got blown out last week at Arizona. Didn't look very good. They couldn't move the ball at all, but they are up to a 5.5 point favorite, which is kind of surprising in terms of that's a pretty big move there for them. And I want to talk about two games where we've got definite sharp public split, and the line really hasn't moved because the public is so overwhelming. That is Detroit at Green Bay. Green Bay is a 7 point favorite right now, and Sharps took Detroit +7, -05. And again, my wager count on that game is almost like 3-1 in favor of Green Bay, so that's why the line has basically stayed where it is. We've only moved the juice about 5 cents, so not a big move yet. But Sharps are on Detroit +7, -05. And same situation with the Vikings at Carolina. Carolina's a 7 point favorite, and the Sharps took the Vikings +7, -05. And I hate to say this, but Bradford actually looked pretty good last week. So
Sure.
They got a little bit of confidence in them. They've lost Peterson, so Bradford maybe is going to wing the ball around a little bit more. And the count almost, again, same situation with Green Bay. It's almost like 3-1 in favor of Carolina. So I expect the public's going to pound Carolina. They're going to pound Green Bay. And if we stay where we are, I wouldn't be surprised if the Sharps came back on Detroit and Minnesota. These are two games where just looking ahead, like if you see on Sunday these lines dropping down, you can be pretty much sure that it's some sharp guys taking the two dogs there with Detroit and Minnesota, because the public is going to, they've obviously tipped their hand that they're betting Green Bay and they're betting Carolina.
Sure. Brent from BetDSI, thanks so much as always. We'll talk to you again next week for NFL Week 4.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.